Hello again. Welcome to the Sleepy Pillow. My name is Sarah, and today we'll be reading Old White Whiskers and the King of the Flowers from Korean Fairy Tales by William Elliott Griffith. Let's find a comfy place, close your eyes, and enjoy the stories. Old White Whiskers and Mr. Bunny. White Whiskers was the name of a huge tawny tiger that lived in the mountains of Gangwon. He was the proudest tiger in the whole peninsula of Korea. He had the most fiery eyes, the longest tail, the sharpest claws, and the widest stripes of any animal in the mountains. He could pull down a cow, fight all the dogs in any village, eat up a man, and was not afraid of a hunter unless the man carried a gun. As for calves and pigs, he considered them mere tidbits. He could claw off the roof or break the bars of stables where cattle were kept, devour one pig on the spot, and then, slinging another on his back, could trot off to his lair miles away to give his cubs their dinner of fresh pork. White Whiskers was especially proud because he was the retainer of the great genius of the mountains that men feared and worshipped, and in those honor they built shrines. One of these mountain spirits, when he wanted to, could call together all the tigers in his domain, and then, sitting astride the back of the biggest, he would ride off on the clouds or to victory over Korea's enemies. Both tigers and leopards were his messengers to do his bidding. Only the big and swift and striped tigers were chosen to carry out the mountain spirit's orders. One particular matter of business confided to White Whiskers, the great striped tiger, was to visit daily the shrines in the hill passes to see if offerings were continually made. The people who were in terror of both the mountain spirit and his servants, the tigers, daily offered sacrifice out of fear. They piled up stone, rags, bits of metal, or laid food on dishes, for the mountain spirit was very exacting and tyrannical. The poor folks thought that if they did not thus heap up their offerings, the spirit would be angry and send the tigers at night to prowl around the village, scratch at their doors, and eat up donkeys, cows, calves, pigs, and even men, women, and children. Then the hunters would go out with matchlocks to slay the man-eaters, but by this time in daylight, the tigers were far up into their lairs in the mountain. Indeed, it was so hard to get a shot at a tiger that the Chinese, who liked to make fun of their neighbors in white coats, declared that during one half of the year the Koreans hunt the tigers, and during the other half the tigers hunt the Koreans. That is, the men go out with their guns in the summer, but in winter, when men keep within doors, the hungry wild beasts descend from the mountains for their prey. Now, Old White Whiskers was both proud and crafty. For many years, he had eaten up pigs, calves, dogs, donkeys, and chickens, and had twice feasted on men, besides avoiding all their traps and dodging every one of their bullets. So he began to think he could laugh at all of his enemies. Yet proud as he was destined to be outwitted by a creature without strength or sting, claws or hoofs, as we shall see. Mr. Rabbit, who burrowed in a hill near the village, had often heard the squealing of unfortunate pigs and the kicking of braying donkeys as they made dinners for old White Whiskers. Thus far, however, by being very cautious, he had kept out of the striped tyrant's way and maw. But one cold winter's day, coming home, tired, weak, and hungry, from having no food since yesterday, just as he was crossing a river on the ice, he met old White Whiskers face to face. From behind a rock by the shore, near Mr. Bunny's burrow, the big tiger leaped out and tried to freeze the rabbit with terror by staring at him with his great green eyes. Mr. Bunny knew only too well that tigers love to maul and play with their prey before eating it up, and he thought his last hour had come. Nevertheless, Mr. Bunny was perfectly cool. He did not shiver a bit. He had long expected such a meeting and was ready for old White Whiskers, intending to throw him off his guard, fully expecting, in a minute or two, to tear off the little animal's fur and grind his bones for a dinner. The tiger said to the rabbit, "I'm hungry. I shall eat you up at once." "Oh, why should you bother with me?" said Mr. Bunny. "I'm so little and skinny as hardly to make a mouthful for your majesty. Just listen to me and I'll get you a royal dinner. I'll go up the mountain and drive the game to your very paws. Only you must do exactly what I tell you." At the prospect of a full dinner, the tiger actually grinned with delight. The way he yawned, showing his red, cavernous mouth, huge white teeth, each as big as a spike, and the manner of his rolling out his long, curved tongue, full of rough points like thorns, nearly scared Mr. Bunny out of his wits. The rabbit had never looked down a tiger's mouth before, but he did not let on that he was afraid. It was only the tiger's way of showing how happy it was. When his mouth watered, and he licked his chops in anticipation of a mighty feast. "I'll do just as you say," said old White Whiskers to Mr. Bunny, seeing how grateful the rabbit was to have his own life spared. "It is my ambition to serve the Lord of the Mountains," said Mr. Bunny. "So lie down on the ice here, shut your eyes, and do not stir. Now mind you, keep your peepers closed or the charm will fail. I'll make a circle of dry grass and then go round and round you, driving the game to you. If you hear a noise and even some crackling, don't open your eyes till I give you the word. It'll take some time." Old White Whiskers, tired of tramping in the forest and prowling around pig pens all day but getting nothing, was both hungry and tired. So he resolved, while waiting, to take a good nap. As quickly as one can blow out a candle, he was asleep. Thereupon Mr. Bunny made himself busy in pulling up all the grass he could find and piling it around and close up to old White Whiskers. Delighted to hear the big brute snoring, he kept on until he had a thick ring of combustibles. Then he set it on fire, waited till it blazed up high, then he scampered off to see the fun. Old White Whiskers, awakened by the crackling, yawned and rubbed his eyes with his paws, wondering what the noise could be. "Hold on," screamed Mr. Bunny. "Keep your promise." And farther he ran up the hill. rascal," growled the tiger as the red tongues of flame leaped up all around him. He had to jump high to escape from the flames with his life. Even as it was, one paw was scorched so that he limped, and his fur was singed so badly that all his long hair and fine looks were gone. When he got back home, the other tigers laughed at him. Henceforth, he had to take second place, for the great mountain spirit no longer trusted such a stupid servant. The King of the Flowers. Korea is the land of beautiful scenery and lovely flowers. Snow white and ruby red are their chief colors. In the springtime, when the ice has melted and the rivers have poured their floods into the sea, the whole country blushes with the pink bloom of azaleas. The glens are white with lilies of the valley. The breezes, as they sweep the land, come laden with perfume. The girls mark the season of the year and the time of the month by the blossoms even more than by the almanac, for they keep in mind the calendar of the flowers. Daughters that are especially beloved of their parents are named from the blossoms, and the Korean housefather, when affectionate, speaks of his wife as the plum tree. An old song says, "The homesick husband, long away from his dear ones, inquires of a fellow townsman newly arrived, 'Have you seen my native land? Come tell me all you know. Did just before the old home door the plum tree blossoms show?' And the stranger answers promptly, 'They were in bloom, though pale, 'tis true, and sad from waiting long for you.' This is like the Scotsman who calls his wife his bonny briar bush, for in the land of morning glow they have a language of flowers. Each plant and blossom has a meaning and either delightful or disagreeable associations. It is a compliment to speak of a girl as a pear blossom, for the pear is one of the most glorious of trees, and its blooms are lovely to behold. It would hardly do, however, to call her a cinnamon rose, for this flower has evil associations. The kiseng, as the Koreans pronounce the name of the geisha, as the Japanese call the dancing girls, are associated with the cinnamon rose. For did not the sages tell this story? 12 centuries ago lived the renowned scholar Seoljong, the greatest of all the learned men of Korea. His head was full of knowledge, as a persimmon is of pulp, and his ideas were as numerous as the seeds in a pomegranate. He taught his countrymen all that was in the books of China, and in the temple of Confucius his portrait hangs to this day. He lived in the kingdom of Shilla in the days of its glory, when ships from Japan and China sailed into the seaports, and the Arabs from Baghdad brought their pretty wares to exchange for gold, ginseng, camphor, porcelain, cinnamon, ginger, and tiger skins, to take to their renowned caliph and his turbaned nobles at court, of whom we read in the Arabian Nights. When the king of Shilla, Shimun, was living in luxury and filling his palace with too many pretty dancing girls who distracted his mind from attending properly to the affairs of state, Seoljong warned his master against the increasing influence of these women by telling him the following story. Once upon a time, in spring, the peony, king of the flowers, blossomed so gorgeously that it became the admiration of all the lovers of beauty in the whole country. Hundreds of people made long journeys to the capital of Shilla to see the bright blossoms. In the king's gardens, on very tall stalks, the many branches were heavenly laden with large red flowers. These were indeed lovely to behold, but the king of the whole garden was a single peony grown on one stem, so that all the strength and nourishment of the plant were concentrated in that unique royal bloom. All saluted this flower as king. When all the other flowers heard of the king's glory, they came to pay their respects to the floral court, of which the peony was sovereign. All the trees sent their choicest blooms as envoys. In one glorious procession of perfume and color, the peach, plum, pear, apple, and persimmon trooped in, each making its obeisance to the monarch of all flowers. All these tree blossoms prided themselves on being so useful to man as harbingers of the delicious fruits to come. Then, among the bright throng appeared sprightly young virgin flowers, the tea rose in pearl-tinted frock, the azalea in pink, the lily in white, the strawberry blossom, and a score of other pretty creatures of the garden. Last of all appeared the cinnamon rose. She tripped nimbly along in a green skirt and red jacket, with haughty air and breath of spice. One after the other, they were presented to King Peony, and gracefully made their salute. But of them all, the king seemed most to favor Miss Cinnamon Flower. He let the others pass out from the court, but lingered long with the spicy visitor, spending so much time in her society as if smitten with her charms. By and by, he invited Miss Cinnamon Rose to come and live in the palace, and leaving his ministers to carry on the government. He spent all his time in her society. She was installed in a place near His Majesty, and seemed always to have his ear and attention, even when the king's prime minister had to wait long for an audience, or even a word. Miss Cinnamon Rose seemed to be the real ruler instead of the king himself. But one day, there came to the palace the flower called Old Man. He looked exactly like an age beggar, dressed in sackcloth and leaning on a staff. Respectfully bowing, he asked if he might share the hospitality of the king's palace. He was welcomed and fed, partaking of the royal bounty. When at last he was given audience of King Peony and was invited to speak, he said, "Out along the road, Your Majesty, I heard of your rich feast and good things to eat. Now I hear that you need medicine. Although you dress in Chinese silk, and none are equal to you in the magnificence of your robes and the splendor of your court, yet you are much like me in your wants, and you need a common knife string as well as I. Is it not so?" "You are quite right, old man," replied the king. "Yet I like the cinnamon rose and want her with me. I cannot do without her." "Yes, Your Majesty. Yet, is it not true that if you keep company with the wise and prudent, your reign will be long, powerful, and glorious? But if you consort with the foolish, your house will fall. Did not 3 dynasties of the emperors of Great China fall because of the beautiful women who tempted their majesties to forget their duties? If it were so with the ancients, how much more is it now?" The king blushed, even to a deep crimson. He confessed his faults and reformed his life. It is said the lesson was not lost on the real human king. He dismissed his harem, sent away the dancing girls, and ruled wisely till the day of his death.